All right, good morning again, Altar Church. How we doing today? We doing okay? You doing good? So as you know, this is the last Sunday that we have here in July. We won't be here for a couple weeks, but we'll be back in better. But today, I'm really excited, and I hope you are too, for this message that we're about to listen to. Can everybody please give it up for the lovely Miss Rachel over here?
Thank you. In a book that a group of us just studied by Michael Huffman, he says that biology doesn't keep women from preaching, but it might keep them from lifting the pulpit. And that was true for me this morning. So thank you for setting me up. Here I am. All right. I want to start by sharing something with you that it's a little embarrassing. It makes me cringe to read it. Comments by officer candidates. I am interested in being on student council because after serving as president this past year, I've thought of some goals for our class to reach. And after the experience I've gained this year, next year will run much smoother. I think the main focus our class needs is to get motivated. In office, I will be more than willing to dedicate my time to the better of our class if everyone could put forth the same effort. I have written a great many things in my life, and this is not one of the ones that I'm proud of. I was in high school, and I wanted things to be fair. My siblings and I used to have a chant, and it went something like this. It's not fair. Nothing's fair. And I'm sure that this was a time that I whipped it out. I wanted to serve. I wanted the praise, but I was unsure of how I fit into the bigger picture, how I was going to enjoy it. And now, looking back as an adult, I can see from the outside that I wasn't making myself very charming or pretty. I didn't look joyful. I looked resentful and unsatisfied. The posture of my heart was lacking. I was doing the right things, but I didn't have the right heart for it. And in hindsight, I realized I was caught in a dynamic not unlike Martha's in Luke 10. She's serving, she's busy, she's fulfilling expectations, and she's resentful. I've lived that feeling even now. As an adult, sometimes I've struggled to find the joy in the service. When I'm throwing a party or hosting a holiday or I'm helping at a larger event, there are times I end up in the kitchen, peeking around the corner, feeling like I'm missing the moment. I don't want to be stuck serving while the Spirit is moving in the other room. And like Martha, sometimes I've caught myself wondering why others get to sit and rest while I have to carry this unfair load. At the heart of it, I've realized this isn't just about hosting. It's about the tension between duty and devotion, hustle and holiness, doing and being. It's so easy to try to find our worth through busyness instead of resting in the love of Jesus. And when our doing outpaces our being, Jesus calls us right back to him. We might accidentally prioritize doing over being, and we don't always get the posture of our hearts quite right. So today, I want to dive into a lesson that's going to focus on a few different things. Prioritizing being over doing, aligning the posture of our hearts, and having a resurrection mindset. It's not going to be just about resting instead of serving. It's going to be about how Jesus meets us in both places and calls us into new life. So here we go. We're going to read from Luke 10. This is Luke 10, 38 through 42. And it's called At the Home of Martha and Mary. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and she asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. This is a story many of us know. Two sisters, one working, one sitting. And Jesus says Mary has chosen the better part. We often take this as an interpretation that Mary is better. Martha equals type A, Mary equals contemplative. Martha is stressed, Mary is spiritual. Martha's not so great. Mary is the best. Mary is receiving the better portion, but she's not receiving the whole portion. And I think that's something that we neglect to focus on. Martha is not to be underestimated or neglected. Not to mention, when did we decide collectively that Martha wasn't very far along in her spiritual journey? Maybe she had already sat. Maybe she was ready to be doing. Maybe she had already done her being. We read that this was Martha's house. Maybe it was her house church. Maybe she was not just serving food. Maybe she was serving in pastoral ways. And where's Lazarus? Why isn't he mentioned? I think it has a little to do with gender roles. Why was this story used to pit two sisters against each other? But I digress. A feminist lens for another time. That's not our focus today. No matter what the circumstances are for Martha's service, she is the one serving, and she's bitter. Is she burnt out? Is she jealous? Jesus isn't asking for her performance. He wants her presence and to have an impact on her purpose. So let's pause, because what's happening here is radical, and we're going to look at it through the eyes of this time. So in Jewish culture, sitting at the rabbi's feet meant you were a disciple. It doesn't literally mean that Mary was lying on the ground, kicking back. She was learning from Jesus with the intention of using that knowledge to do something with it. It wasn't passive, it was formation. Mary took her place in that posture among the men where she might not have typically been welcomed. And unsurprisingly, when Jesus was questioned, he didn't flinch. He didn't correct anyone. He affirmed her. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. That's not just his gentle comment, it was an affirmation. Disciples and women belong in spaces of theological learning and spiritual leadership. Mary was growing. She was working on the posture of her heart. She was a signpost of the kingdom of God, breaking into ordinary homes through ordinary people. She was being, in this moment, preparing for her doing. And her study was being encouraged by Jesus. The story doesn't make mention of Martha responding, or Mary responding to Martha the way that I know that me and my sister would have to each other, or that my kids would to each other. She doesn't fire back, yes I am, or no I'm not. She's unbothered. She's submitting to Jesus and what she knows she's supposed to do. She had found the better portion. But what about Martha? We often paint Martha as the scolding older sister. But let's read it more closely. When she says to Jesus, "Don't you care?" she's not just complaining. She's questioning, "Jesus, don't you care about me?" She's questioning maybe even his values. It feels to me like Martha's chanting, "It's not fair, nothing's fair." And if you're a parent, maybe you can relate to this in the same specific way that I can. Sometimes my kids have different things they need to do, and they don't like that. They can't see the bigger picture, but I can, just like Jesus could. He didn't scold Martha. He said, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things." Repeating her name brings deep affection. I think of the calm that this would bring me, of the calm this kind of comfort has brought me from my husband in different party hostess situations. I like to think that Jesus had gently placed his hand on top of Martha's. It wasn't him rebuking her, it was him inviting her. Trust God in the chaos, in your stress. She might be doing what culture told her to do. Whether she was preparing a meal or serving in a different way, she was definitely doing what needed done. She was fulfilling expectations, and she was hustling. She was trying to serve the Messiah, but in this moment, she was missing the fact that the Messiah was there to serve her. So Jesus wasn't calling her out, he was calling her in. He was saying, you don't have to perform for me. You can just sit here. You can be and then do. He wanted her to find rest in him and then align the posture of her heart. I read a commentary while I was preparing for this that said, Martha was preparing a meal, and Jesus wasn't arguing that someone needed to prepare the meal. There needed to be food. But maybe Martha was preparing an extravagant meal full of many courses, and Jesus was just trying to get her to keep it simple. He wanted to spend the time with her. He wanted to remind her that he wanted to be with her. And he wanted to remind her that Mary was okay. She was doing what she needed to do. Maybe Martha was set. Maybe she was ready to do, but her sister wasn't. She needed to change her mindset, Martha, and allow Mary the opportunity to get what she needs to, even if it didn't feel fair. Martha's attitude, missing the mark. The posture of her heart, out of whack. Although I like to remind myself when I read some of these gospel stories that we've all had a bad attitude about our siblings or our spouses or our friends, and no one took the time to document that in the most popular book in the world for thousands of years. So, got a little sympathy for Martha there. What I've missed, and what I think the church has missed, is that Martha is no less of a disciple than Mary. They are both disciples. This isn't a story about Mary being superior, and it isn't justification for laziness or being bad stewards of the things we've been entrusted with by God. Loving your neighbor must be paired with loving God. This leads to a flourishing, full Christian life. There's a balance between action and contemplation. We know this because Luke's gospel seems to revolve and focus heavily on hospitality. This story came immediately after the story of the Good Samaritan. What does that show us? We need to learn to do both. Both are important, just like both of these sisters are important. Plus, we can sit at Jesus' feet no matter where we are. At work, in the carpool lane, caring for the children, going to school. We only need to have our hearts turned toward him. It's about changing the posture of our hearts. Jesus is not confined to sacred spaces and quiet moments. I spoke a lot about the posture of the heart during my Advent messages on Facebook this past year. Every bit of what we have and have to do can glorify God if we're doing it right. Hard work is good, except when it's driven by anxiety or pride or performance or disconnected from Christ. Hard work is good except when we're leveraging it to play the martyr. Hard work is good except when we're using it to boast or compare. This quote by Thomas Aquinas says, "Contemplation is superior, but action is necessary to love your neighbor. Work is necessary. Hard work is even called for throughout the Bible. We know that God himself worked and then rested. We have all of these verses. I'm going to read some verses that point us to hard work. In Genesis, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Thessalonians, the one who is unwilling to work shall not eat. Colossians, whatever you do, work at it with all of your heart. The work Martha was doing needed done, and she was good to do it, but the posture of her heart, I think, is what needs questioned. We see Martha again in John 11. Her brother Lazarus has died. Let's read that. We're in John 11, verse 11. And this is the death of Lazarus. Now, a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick." When he heard this, Jesus said, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days, and then he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." Jesus loved Martha. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. "Lord," Martha said to Jesus, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answered, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she replied. "I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." It's Martha who runs out to meet Jesus. And it's Martha who is brave. And it's Martha who says, "I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." Let that sink in. It's one of the clearest confessions in the gospel. And it came from Martha. Her brother's not even risen yet. In fact, John writes in summation of his gospel that his entire purpose of writing the gospel was so that we may come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that through this belief we may have life in his name, which would then mean Martha is a model disciple. That's not accidental. That's transformation. Here's Martha, often remembered as one of the many, many characters of the Bible, as someone who has no time to sit with Jesus, making one of the most important affirmations in the Bible. Do we remember her like this? She believed without seeing. Her brother was in the grave. She was mourning, not rejoicing. She wasn't in a good mood. She had resurrection faith. Maybe it was Jesus' invitation in Luke 10. His gentle "Martha, Martha," that planted a seed. Maybe it was his acceptance and encouragement and affirmation of her sister that planted a seed. Maybe it was just letting Martha know that she was seen and loved. Maybe that's what planted the seed. But in John 11, we saw those seeds bloom into bold, resurrection-rooted faith. So getting to this point, showing herself as a proclaiming disciple, making these statements that are legendary, it doesn't mean Martha never served again. In fact, shortly after her brother was raised from the dead, shortly before Jesus was crucified, we see Martha serving again. This is John 12, 1 through 2. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Here, a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha served, while Lazarus was among those reclining at the table with him. But this time, we can assume the posture of Martha's heart was impacted. Why was her service even mentioned? I think because service is important. Martha deserves the honor. Work is important, and it has its place. No matter what really happened that day in the house, the day that Martha called out about her sister Mary, it had an effect on her. She walked out of that house changed. She found new contentment in her service. And she was now serving with a proven reality. Jesus raises the dead. So we read this story. It's a lesson about balance. We are learning to sit down sometimes. We're going to find the time to rest. We're going to find renewal, prepare ourselves. We're going to use this story as an excuse to sit this one out. Just kidding. But yeah, that's part of it. It's a big part of it. Jesus does offer us balance. Our work flows from our worship, and they have to coexist. But if we're going to stop there, we're going to miss the deeper truth. Jesus offers us all freedom. It's not just about doing and being. It's about God's new world breaking in through Jesus. And Martha and Mary were both called to participate. Jesus turned a performance-based life into discipleship. Mary represents the kind of disciple hungry to learn. She's stepping beyond expectations and norms and culture's ideas to be present with Jesus. And she is in a period of being before doing. That's where she's at. And that's fine. Martha is representing someone caught in the pressure of performance and production and comparison. She was seeking what only he can give in the wrong places. But Jesus offered her freedom too. Neither of them earned their worth. It was given to them. And we see that transformation take root. Martha went from resentful hostess to confessor of the Christ, proclaiming the resurrection before the resurrection had even happened. And that's the trajectory we're meant to follow. Not just inner peace and rest and calm, contentment with serving, but new creation together. The story is about liberation and being led to the resurrection. This is the path of discipleship. I'm going to read Proverbs 27, 17 through 19. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. The one who guards a fig tree will eat its fruit, and whoever protects their master will be honored. As water reflects the face, so one's life reflects the heart. I like this verse. I use it in my marriage. Lots of people do. But I think we can also apply it here. The disciples have impact on one another. These women are reflecting back each other. These sisters, different parts of the same body, are intertwined. The posture of their hearts reflect in the way they live their lives. Where their hearts are positioned shows. We've heard maybe the song or just the statement that they will know we are Christians by our love. I think that's relevant here. How are we presenting ourselves? Do we seem like Christ followers, leading others to the news of the resurrection? Or do we seem like a resentful and jealous worker bee? It's not a personal message, it's a communal one. It's not just a personal message. It is personal. It isn't just for us as the individual, it's for the church. This is the body of Christ in many parts. In communion, we become one body. And this is tying us to Jesus' resurrection. We're living in a future that already began. What does it say about us? Our ministries and our culture and our society, if we only value people for what they produce? Our ministries need to be reflecting resurrection values, not just productivity. Hope, renewal, transformation, engagement. How are we making space for more disciples? To serve, to sit with Jesus, to learn, to grow, to lead. How are we honoring those who quietly hold all the things together? Not just for their work behind the scenes, but for the depth of faith that they're carrying. Both belong, and both are reshaped by the risen Jesus. And we don't stop working after we saw the power. Martha didn't. She witnessed a resurrection and she kept right on serving. She watched her brother rise from the dead and then she served dinner. There's room at the table and there's room at Jesus' feet for all of us. In all of our stages, in all of our growth, He will change the posture of all of our hearts if we let him. Are we providing the opportunities and creating a culture where everyone's given that chance? Is everyone being given the opportunity to serve? This is the widening of the circle I've heard Pastor Aaron talk about. There needs to be room for spirituality and service. We shouldn't be glorifying the hustle, but hope. Martha and Mary are not opposites. They are one whole disciple. We reflect the fullness of the church that Jesus intended when we encompass both of those spirits. Jesus didn't just calm Martha's anxiety. He opened her eyes to a whole new world. He invited her out of obligation and resentment and into resurrection vision. He honored Mary's boldness and Martha's faith. And he's doing the same for us. So yes, rest. Serve, learn, host, preach. But do it all as citizens of the kingdom, where every table is sacred, every person is seen, and every act of service flows from a life rooted in resurrection hope. True discipleship flows from being with Jesus. Do it because you've sat at his feet. Break old boundaries. Serve with the joy of the new creation that has already begun. And step into a radically transformed future. I'm going to pray. Jesus, thank you for calling us not just to believe, but to belong. Not just to work, but to worship. Not just to serve, but to sit with you. Shape us into a church that reflects your heart. Let our serving be more than tasks. Let it be testimony. Let every table we set, every hand we lend, every act of care be a way that we proclaim the good news. You are alive and you are here with us. Make our joy contagious. Make our work worship. Make our community a display of your kingdom. One where no one is overlooked and everyone is invited in. Not called out, invited in. We don't serve to earn your love. We serve because we've been loved. Let us be rooted in this love, not performance and hustle culture, not social media. Let us be rooted in grace, not pressure. And empower us, Jesus, to go from this place as resurrection people, serving joyfully so the world can see you. Make us whole again and integrate us with your presence. Amen.